With the Sinoceratops being added, the park came to its conclusion for its latest campaign, in which it added 3 new herbivores of the trike family. Being that there were 3 campaigns in a fairly short time span, it would take a while before they would hold another similar action. Nevertheless, behind the scenes, scientists and money holders were already arguing and discussing on what the next big thing for the park should be. But for the moment, everything was set up to get these Sinoceratops to their new home. Usually these magnificent creatures could be found grazing in large herds amongst other different species of dinosaurs. Compared to other similarly built dinosaurs, the Sinoceratops was incredibly sturdy and massive, making it more of a battering ram with its one giant frontal horn. The spikes on its crown were bent in an angle where it did not offer any offensive capabilities, but did provide with some form of defensive mechanism in that any predator that would clench their jaw down on it would be in the world of hurt. Similar to that of the wildebeest and such alike, the Sinoceratops too would stand in a circle with its horns pointed outward to protect its young. An impenetrable shield would be created if the herd was large enough. Despite the previous 2 dinosaurs sharing similarities, all 3 were different enough to where they could demand their own spot in the spotlight. They did not have the vibrant colors that the Styracosaurus did, but their size, color patterns, and overall impression could leave someone easily in awe. And they liked their new home, though it certainly took a while for them to calm down. The rangers resorted to the calming medicine in their food once more, though this time it took a while before they felt the need to feed. And thus the campaign officially came to its end, and the guests were intrigued by the park's next appearance. For a while, a very large zone had been reserved near 2 of the hotels, and for the longest time it had already been decided that this would be the home of the Diplodocus. But the paperwork and preparation of these behemoths took so long that it wasn't until now that they finally could be brought into the park. These long-necked gentle giants were very different from the other behemoths like the Dreadnoughtus or the Brachiosaurus. All those dinosaurs had a very vertical build, but the Diplodocus was all about horizontal alignment. That is why they needed such a large pen to be in, because of the sheer size and space they would take up. Since their heads were closer to the eye level of large predators, it was not uncommon for the Diplodocus to be attacked by something like a T-Rex. Its slow movement had its long neck wide open for an attack, and their main defense mechanism was their whip-like tail. Now a strike by this tail could definitely strip the flesh from bone, but more often than not it was not enough to halt the predator, which had all the adrenaline pumped through its veins. In a battle between a T-Rex and a Diplodocus, it was more often the Diplodocus that would lose. But that said, not all T-Rexes or other predators of a similar size had the guts to take on such a giant prey. More often than not, they would settle for a smaller, easier target, and thus these clashes were very rare to be seen. Us humans, however, were a lot more fragile, and getting stomped by a Diplodocus was far more likely, as some of the rangers witnessed during the sedation procedure. Seeing these giants fly through the air never got old, with their necks and tails hanging down, not really making a comfortable impression. But as always, the movement to their pen went swell too. and the calm nature of these dinosaurs made it to where no one panicked because of the movement. Now they also had gotten a beautiful home with lots of vegetation and water. There was always enough space to move around in and perform actions like drinking. The drinking itself was a whole ordeal in and of itself, because the Diplodocus needed to position its feet and then descend its neck in order to drink. Yeah, it wasn't easy to be a Diplodocus, but what magnificent creatures they were. Guests staying at the 2 nearby hotels had a beautiful view of the Diplodocus zone, and nothing would start a day better than to see these gentle giants first thing in the morning. And so it was time for the next attraction, and for the past few months in the park had seen its share of only herbivores being added, so it was time for another carnivore. However, this time, it wouldn't just be any carnivore. With the experimental procedures of having dinosaurs that had their looks inspired from movies like Disney's Dinosaur or King Kong, it was only a logical step before scientists would try and replicate beasts from other properties as well. One of them was Godzilla, the king of the monsters. The park's audience was asked if they wanted to see Godzilla in the park or not, and there was an overwhelming number of those who indeed wanted to see it. And thus Godzilla made its entry into the park. And what a great impression it made. Now obviously the size of this beast would not be the same as seen in the actual movies, but by splicing and using various genes, this creature could see the light of day. In a way, it resembled the younger versions from Godzilla more than the actual mother from the 1998 movie, and therefore it was also a logical choice to not stick to one, but multiple. Its crests on its back were magnificent, the overall look was just real menacing and very lifelike to that of the movie. Their color patterns did not really seem all that different, but that did not make them any less impressive. It was huge news that these creatures would make their appearance, and some were worried and afraid if these animals would break down the park like they do with the cities all the time in the movies. But the scientists made sure to raise the behavior prohibitors in that these carnivores would actually be amongst the most docile in the park. The moving and settling into their new home went really smoothly, and another big attraction that could stand amongst kings like the T-Rex and the Giganotosaurus was added. Many of the money holders did not think it possible and thought that most of the predators remaining were more of a B ranking, and thus for the weeks after, the Godzillas enjoyed their time in the spotlight as people from all over the globe came and flew in to get but a glimpse of these tanks. And to sizzle down, and in preparation of the next big attraction, plans for a new dinosaur were already set in motion. For the moment, the researchers did not have any specific dinosaur in mind to take the spotlight away from Godzilla, but that would come in due time. For now, a smaller pen was reserved, and a Polycanthus couple was added. Sure, these two were so small and docile that they would fall a bit short compared to something majestic as Godzilla, but they had their own fair share of fans, and it kept the dinosaur train running.